The Canon M50 has been used by vloggers all over the world, and it's a great camera, but can it look cinematic? Let's have a look at some settings that you can change to make it look cinematic for free, and then what accessories can really enhance that experience for your viewers. Okay, we're back shooting on the Canon M50's kit lens, which is a 15 to 45mm lens. Now, there's a few things that we need to talk about in terms of settings. The first thing is to put your camera into either 24 or 25 frames per second, depending on if you're using PAL or NTSC. Then we need to talk about shutter speed. I'm just going to change some shutter speeds. At the minute we're on 50 frames per second, which is kind of roughly, if you double the frames per second and then put 1 over that, which is called the 180-degree rule, that's roughly what you expect in motion blur in like a film. So if you see that, but if we then move this, if we crank that to 20 and that's letting in more light, I'm going to need to drop that ISO down to 100 as well to try and get the same. But you can see that my mouth is going kind of crazy and a bit weird, and also there's lots of motion blur. Okay, and then what we're also going to do now is we're going to go the other way. I'm going to go to 1/125. I'm going to pull up that ISO so you can actually see me, but you can also see that it's a little bit too sharp and a little bit like, why are you seeing me like doing everything? Now you can see that the shutter speed drastically affects the way that picture looks. The next thing we have to talk about is depth of field. Now in the cinema, you generally won't see like everything is in focus. You can probably see that the background is slightly out of focus, but not like amazingly out of focus. And that is to do with the aperture of the lens and also the focal length that we're shooting at. So I'm now shooting at f3.5, but if I change that and bring it up, or bring it down, sorry, to let's go to f7. And let's bring the ISO up so you can see the background. Now that's all like really in focus, really in focus. That's kind of the opposite of what you want. So you want the lowest ISO you possibly can, and the highest, or should I say the lowest f number, but the most open you can possibly get your lens in most instances. Now, the most undiscovered thing is actually to do with picture profiles. Canon's standard picture profiles are very crisp, and film isn't really that crisp. It's kind of a little bit worn because it's kind of trying to replicate the movies from old where the picture wasn't perfect. So there's a link in the description of this video, and it will take you to download a picture profile, and it will give you some instructions on how to install them. And that's what I want to kind of touch on now, is again something that's free that can make it look a little bit more cinematic. So I'm now going to change my camera over into that profile. My gosh, doesn't that make a massive difference? Like the blacks are a bit more grey, the whites are a bit more dull and warm. Everything is a little bit flatter, and less contrast and less saturation. So you can colour grade that the way you want to. And really, that is more the cinema look. So now let's look at a couple of things to take that to the next level. And the first thing is a lens. It's the Canon 50mm 1.8. Now that's really quite wide, and it gives you really good separation between subjects. As you can see at the moment, we're shooting at 2.5, so you can actually get further separation than I've already got right now. The reason that I say you need that over the kit lens is because At 15 millimeters, this opens up to 3.5, which is, you can get some separation as you saw, but the problem is the 15 millimeter kind of focal length isn't really that useful in terms of kind of cinematic shots. So as soon as you then start moving to 35 or 45, it affects the aperture. It can't stay open all the time that far when you zoom in. So when you zoom to 45 millimeters, it actually takes it down to 6.3, which means you kind of got everything in focus and it's really missing the point of that cinematic look. Your next accessory is an ND filter, or a variable ND filter. And the reason why you want one of those is because if you open up your aperture to 1.8, for instance, and go outside with a ISO 100, even at ISO 100, 1/50th of a second on your shutter speed, you are going to have so much light coming into that lens you cannot control it. It will just all be blown out. So this variable ND filter will allow you to control the light that's coming in. They're commonly referred to as sunglasses for your camera. Now, the next thing you need to deal with is how smooth your footage is. Again, you can do this, number one, for free, so you can use your strap and stretch it and hold it against the back of your neck so that you've got a really rigid feel to it. That will help. The next thing that you can do is to hold your elbows right in against your body and move your body instead of moving your arms. That will make a massive difference. And 9 times out of 10, that will actually do the trick. But the problem that I've found with the M50 is it's quite light. Because it's so light, it's really easy to accidentally move. So a cage would be a good idea to add a bit of weight. Next idea would be to have a gimbal. And I've found that since having a gimbal, I've been able to get some shots that I definitely couldn't get before. Something like this, where I was walking to go and record another video, and in my head I was just like, oh, wouldn't this shot be quite cool? There's no way I could do that handheld without it shaking everywhere. But most of the shots I can get handheld without needing any kind of stability if I've got a cage or a strap or both. So putting all of that together, let's see what we can do with the M50 Cine style, ND filter, 50mm lens and a gimbal. Let's see what we can get out of that. So what did you think? Now, to me, that is the look of cinema. It is kind of washed out a little bit, very smooth, really flat, but really engaging and really focusing on what you should be looking at. And that is really what shooting cinematic footage is about. It's about taking a subject and focusing the eye of the viewer on that, not allowing them to go off wandering and miss the point of what you're trying to convey in your story. So really, they are the camera settings. they are some accessories that will help you elevate the possibilities, but it's down to your shot choice, it's down to your pacing, it's down to how smooth you are with telling that story. So get out there, give it a try, and whatever you do, keep learning.